What I'm looking for in a bank is one that's looking out for me, like NBT. I want a relationship and a team that supports me in my dreams. And when life gets challenging, I need a bank that's focused on what matters. Not to mention one that's been top-rated by Forbes in trust, customer service, financial advice, and more. That's why when it comes to meeting my banking needs, it's always NBT. Learn more at nbtbank.com. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Welcome and thanks for tuning in. This is Tom Hickey from 2020 Media, and you are listening to NBT Bank's On the Scene podcast. And we reach over 250,000. That's 1,250,000 readers of weha.com, West Hartford Magazine, and Jewish Ledger, live 24/7, 365. And before we get chatting with today's guest, let me introduce my co-host, Bob Carr. Hello there, Bob.
Hello, Tom. Tom Hickey, along with myself, Kaushik McCarty, and Ronnie Newton, is a founder and partner in weha.com. Tom brings to West Hartford the Connecticut Jewish Ledger, West Hartford Magazine, which is West Hartford's original lifestyle magazine. The Taste of West Hartford. Our next one is coming. Oh, excuse me. Our last one just came out on April 27th. I apologize. And the Best of West Hartford, which is coming at September 28th.
Yeah, absolutely. You got it. Good.
September 28th. Post-production and distribution of our podcast is managed by Exvadio Media, a division of the Modern Observer Group. Today, our guest is Todd Fairchild, who is a photographer extraordinaire.
Ooh, I like that.
Ooh,
I like that.
hello, Todd.
And we can very proudly say has been responsible for as the director of photography for all the great photography in West Hartford Magazine. For how many years, Todd?
Oh, a long time.
Long time.
I'm not even sure how many.
Decades.
I've lost track.
Yeah, exactly. And in fairness of full extent of telling everyone, who we are, Todd and I have known each other forever. And so,
High school. Actually, high school.
High school?
Yeah.
So there we go. So and that
That was a long time.
yeah, that was just a few. Come on, Bob, just a few years ago.
It was like the other day.
Exactly.
Whoa.
So Todd, your journey to photography, tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it all started in fifth grade, actually. My fifth grade school teacher got a bunch of us sort of interested in taking pictures. And then for several years after that, I was mostly taking pictures of landscapes and animals and things like that. But I always liked people the best. And so I got roped into doing a wedding. I'm going to try to give you the Reader's Digest version of this. But I worked for Aetna for many years. And I worked with this vice president. And she says, "You are doing my daughter's wedding." And I said, "I don't do weddings, Emily." And so she says, "Oh, no." She was very insistent. And I said, "Okay, just so you know, I've never done a wedding before." And well, I did it, loved it. And it started a slow progression of recommendations and referrals. And then at the tender age of 51, I left Aetna voluntarily to do it full time. So that's what I'm still doing, and be working with Tom and Weha Magazine and other kinds of things. It's been a ton of fun.
And actually, to bring it full circle, Bob, my son Garrett and his now wife Heather, when they got married, they had Todd do everything, for him. It was amazing.
Yeah, we did.
And you forced them into it, just like Emily, right?
Yeah.
Well, I have to tell you, though, honestly, when it's a passion, you don't care about the amount of time you're putting into it because you want to do it as much as you can. So for Tom's son's wedding, Garrett's wedding, and Heather, I went to a bachelor party. I went to a shower. I did engagement photos down at the shore.
You did. Yeah.
And I'm one of those rare wedding photographers, where the DJ will ask me when I go in, "So what time are you leaving?" And I go, "When the lights come on and the sweet goodbyes are done." Because most photographers have this time limit. They'll do, "Oh, I'll give you 5 hours in one location," and blah, blah, blah. Well, no, just stay right to the end. There's usually a last dance, sometimes a sparkler send-off. Why would you want to miss that?
True, that's true. So what are the challenges? There are many photographers that love doing weddings, and many just will never do a wedding. So what are the challenges that weddings bring that are different from, say, other things? Obviously, the still life is not moving, but what are your other challenges?
The challenge is, for a good week before every wedding, I get a little bit nervous, and I think that nervous energy helps you be right on edge for the wedding. And it's funny because weddings are very typically have the same kind of plot, right? There's a ceremony, then there's a cocktail hour, and then there's a party or a reception afterwards. But every one of them is so unique. And there are so many unique and amazing things that happen at every single wedding, which makes them absolutely amazing. And that's one of the reasons I love them.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think there's really any challenges. The day goes by very quickly, more quickly than people can imagine.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's already 10 o'clock. But I just think you just get as much as you can. I wish I had eyes all around my entire head. I'd look strange, but you don't want to miss a thing. You want to just keep your eyes peeled and be on your best for the entire time you're there.
Bob, if you don't mind, I told my entire family I would ask Todd this question.
Oh no!
And he mentioned eyes, and that made me think about it. I am the most unphotogenic person that you've ever met. Todd knows some of this. I am known for ruining every single one of my friends' weddings I've ever been in, because I close my eyes or I have a crazy look on my face or, whatever it is. This is not something, I'm also married to the most photogenic woman, who can't take a bad picture. So that doesn't help. But anyway, so what do you suggest to people, who like me, close their eyes or, make a funny face or, not on purpose, but it's just the way it comes out in all these photos?
I just think the most important thing is having people be comfortable having their picture taken, because actually most people are not wild about having their picture taken. People see themselves differently in a mirror than they do in an actual photograph. So that's one of the reasons why they go, oh, I look terrible in pictures, right? But I think when you make people feel comfortable and maybe add a little bit of fun to it, as a matter of fact, sometimes people will say, well, I don't really like having my picture taken. I go, well, I know, but I've got a special magic lens. And they go, what's so special about it? And I said, well, only if you need it. It takes off 5 years and 5 pounds. And then a lot of times people say, well, what about 10 years and 10 pounds? I said, man, that lens was too expensive. But I think that the main thing is having people having them be comfortable. And that brings out their very natural best, I think.
So Tom is apparently never comfortable.
I guess not.
Or too comfortable. He's falling asleep as he got his eyes closed.
Yeah, exactly.
One trick I found, if somebody happens to be a blinker, right? Some people blink more than others. What I try to do is try to get them blinking, because by the time my brain goes to my finger on the camera, they're not blinking anymore. So, if you try to get them blinking, you'll always miss.
Yeah. And it's funny you talk about comfortable, because I remember you bringing my son and daughter-in-law into this, but at their wedding, I had asked you something similar because I didn't want to ruin all their pictures, of it. And Todd said to me, if you're just natural, and probably you're going to be too busy to be thinking about it, and that's exactly what happened. I didn't take a bad picture, all day because I wasn't thinking about Todd, or the photographer. I was thinking about other things, that were going on. That's true. So my comfort level was.
Yeah, I think when you immerse yourself in a whole group, like say using a wedding as an example, just immerse yourself with all the guests and family, and then next thing you know, you're kind of one of them, and it also makes people more comfortable.
Yeah,
gotcha.
Yeah.
So so we talked about this when we got together at the Taste of West Hartford, and I asked about digital, because I know I worked in graphic arts for decades and decades and decades, and the transition to digital photography in some ways made things easier for the work that I did, but it changed the nature of photography. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Oh yeah. I was film for many, many, many years, and I was a little reluctant to go digital only because of the cost, because you've got to get high-end camera, high-end lenses, but I have to tell you something. It was so liberating, because when you do film, that means you're essentially printing every single picture you took, good and bad. You also can't edit them. And when I went digital, it was like, you could edit, you could get rid of the the blinkers, right? Like Tom.
Good.
But yeah, I mean, you could edit, you could lighten, you could make black and white, you could crop, you could do all kinds of things and make the pictures even better. Plus, I create a DVD slideshow for all couples to music that they choose. So, that it makes another aspect of it. It makes it just wonderful.
And when did we go digital?
I went
20 years ago?
Yeah, about 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I was in 2005, I think I finally went digital.
Okay.
I would think the other advantage that you can do digital, you couldn't do, as you mentioned, when you're on film, you've taken a photograph and you really don't know what's in that photograph. Like something could be, right? So where with a digital camera, you can go back and take a look at your previous photo. So if it was a bad photo or someone was sneezing in the middle, you didn't notice.
That's a great picture.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, right, exactly. It makes a great picture, but maybe not if it's the bride, or it may not be the best thing to show. But you can go back and look at that and say, okay, we need to reset this one up again. Is that correct?
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah. And there are certain pictures I actually got a kick out of. Like there's invariably there's going to be a little kid, maybe 3, 4 years old, who goes into a crying fit. I want to get the kid crying, right?
Because that's what you're going to remember, right? Exactly. Well, one of the things too this is my reason for asking the question about when did digital happen. Just last week, I was at an event, and I'd say there was a woman, I don't know, mid-30s, late 30s, who was sitting with me and Siobhan at the table, and she had no idea. She didn't know about Kodak. She didn't know about Mystic Labs. I was telling her how, we used to put the film in the camera and wind it. It's taking a little bit. And then we had to send it out and wait for it to come back. And I mean, she looked at me like I had 3 heads. I felt like a dinosaur, but it hasn't been that long.
No, it has not been that long.
Yeah.
I used to use Mystic Color Labs for my film, and it always made me sweat a little bit, sending this stuff off on the somebody's wedding. I had one time Mystic Color Labs accidentally sent my photos to an island off the coast of Alaska.
Oh.
Yeah. And I got their pictures, and they were pictures on beaches with ceremonies, and there was a dead whale and all sorts of
jeez.
stuff. And we had to get that thing exchanged.
Yeah.
And so.
Yeah. I mean, that kind of stuff could happen there, right? But that was a different industry, different time. You look at Kodak. I recently read the Kodak one time. We're getting off the track here a little bit, but 16,000 people work for Kodak in the Rochester area.
Wow.
And that's just Rochester, New York area. Now it's like 3,900. So, because they saw themselves as a film company. Yeah, even though I guess they invented the digital camera, but they kind of hid it, like no one else would ever think about it.
Good.
And then they lost all that film was what they were producing. And they still produce film. They actually produce film for movies, and some photographers still want to use film for certain shots. But it was just interesting that's how many people worked in that industry, and it got destroyed by this particular product, right? That came along.
Do you see that coming back, Todd? Like, vinyls come back now, where people are collecting albums and playing them, themselves. Do you see people getting back into developing, film and developing and taking their own photos, or not really?
I talked to a guy at a flea market who sold cameras, and they were all film cameras, a lot of them antiques. And he did say that there is a little bit of a resurgence in film. I wouldn't even know where to buy film these days.
Really?
And, the other advantage
right.
to digital is not just the quality of the photos, it's the fact that you can share them immediately.
Yeah.
You can set up folders on Dropbox and have them shared. But digital's not foolproof either. You have to make sure I always have backup camera with me, backup cards, and they don't come off the card until they are not only on my computer, but then they are saved externally. Because I've heard so many stories where, even digital photographers, they go, I lost the wedding, which is really sad when there's ways of making it foolproof.
Before I forget, Todd, if someone listening, I'm sure there is, who's having a special occasion, doesn't have to be a wedding, and is looking for a photographer, how do they reach you?
Well, I think the easiest way is, and it's kind of a cool way of getting in touch with me, is through Facebook. I've got a Facebook page, Todd Fairchild Photography, and it's got a variety of photos in there, everything from surprise proposals, weddings in Central Park, senior pictures,
Uh-huh.
different events, and it's kind of a neat way of actually checking out my style too, and it's an easy way of getting in contact with me. So
Right. And could you spell it out for people? Todd's two D's, right?
two D's,
Yeah.
yep, Todd, and then Fairchild, which sounds very English, and then it's photography.
Okay, great.
Very cool. Very cool.
Photography.
Right.
Weha.com, West Hartford's best news source. Weha.com covers West Hartford and only West Hartford. Find us and subscribe to the Weha.com newsletter for free. Log on to we-ha.com. That's we-ha.com. We have it all in West Hartford.
Oh, Tom.
All right, great. No questions on me. One of the things that I keep talking about my son's wedding, but I can't help it but I think this is important. Todd took, I don't know how many, 3,000, I don't know how many photos he took. A lot. You don't know that, but it was a how do I say, very celebratory occasion. People had a really good time. So some of the photos that he took, and this, I didn't know it was even happening, during the event, but when we looked at the photos afterwards, it captured people doing things that you would never think that those people would do. If you love it, and so it got to the point where I had all of those, I output all of those and framed them and gave them to people, and I said, what happened at Garrett and Heather's wedding stays at Garrett and Heather's. But I wanted them to have, a sample of it. So I would love to have you talk a little bit about, because I think it's what I found to be so interesting, like that, capturing all those special moments, like you said, the 3-year-old crying, that kind of stuff. But how do you? I mean, your shirt was untucked and you were sweating and you were, I looked at you a couple times during the wedding. I mean, you really get into it.
Oh yeah, and I think a lot of people are sort of bored with posed pictures, but if you can make those posed pictures kind of fun, like for example, a wedding party, for example, I've had a lot of ideas from brides that they got off of Pinterest, and hell, why not just steal the idea, and it's going to be unique for that person's wedding. But if you, instead of having the wedding party, standing next to each other, or like a sort of a boring posed picture, there's a lot of things you can do to make it fun and creative things. And then get people at their natural best, right? I always try to get every single guest at a wedding. When the guest size is 100 or less, it'd be almost criminal if I didn't get everybody.
Yeah.
Right.
If it's 250, I might miss a few.
Right.
But also getting them having fun, and you should do a few pose pictures, but get some very natural sort of candid pictures.
Excellent.
I like the line when you said that all weddings basically follow the same plot line, but they're uniquely different. I think that's a really cool way of putting that.
Yeah, I mean, there's some very unique things that happen, and it's amazing when you can capture it. And the other thing too is early in my years, 30 years ago, my first weddings, I kind of ignored the old people at weddings. And now I make a special effort to make sure I get grandparents and older people, because our time on this planet really is limited. And when you can capture people at their best later in life, those pictures are very much appreciated down the road when they're no longer with us.
Yeah.
That's very true. That is very true.
Well, it's funny.
So that's actually a really good tip, right?
Yeah.
Let people know that make sure you get grandma, grandpa in there. Since I'm a grandma, I'm grandpa.
Yeah.
Tom's a grandpa.
The other thing too is like, and I'm just talking a lot of personal things here, but next year, the 2027 will mark the 40th anniversary for me to be married. So Shimon and I took out our what was a video, we had to find a way to watch it. So first I had to convert it to a DVD. But anyway, so we finally watched it. And I tell you, and you made me think of it when we were talking about old people. I couldn't, first of all, 40 years ago, everyone, all of the adults at the wedding were smoking.
Oh,
and I was just like, oh my God, like you forget, about all that. And really the women were smoking more than the men. Yeah. It was like, it was really crazy. And I'm telling you, I would say 90%, obviously 40 years ago, those people are no longer with us, so those are the photos, that's the stamp, that you have of remembering, that person as a part of your life. Yeah, so it's important.
Funny you mentioned smoking, because there's two photos that people do that I will not take a photo of. And when people are eating, right, that's one thing.
Yeah.
You're likely to get them in kind of an awkward look. And the other one is smoking cigarettes. Cigars, one thing. Cigarettes, most people want to keep that, under wraps.
Interesting. That's
Yeah.
funny. Is there anything, Todd, that you would say to someone who's listening, who is looking for a photographer? Why you versus someone else that somebody in their family has recommended or a friend has recommended? I mean, I could speak to that, but how about what do you think? What makes you different?
I actually recommend to all couples when I talk to them about their wedding photography, talk to as many photographers that you have the energy to do so, because it's such a personal role. It's not like delivering a cake or delivering the flowers. You are in amongst family and friends for a long time, and you want to make sure you find somebody you're comfortable with. Most photographers take great pictures. Now it's just a matter of, are you going to kind of click with that person, and are you going to feel comfortable with that person? So I always encourage it. And if it's not me, then maybe I help them find somebody even better, because I'm sure there's a lot of people that are better than I am. But just talk to as many as you can. That's what I would say.
Yeah. I like that. It's that comfort level. Yeah, absolutely. Is there anything, my last question, but Bob may have more, but everyone, like I joke, everyone thinks they're a publisher now, because they can go to some software or whatever, and fill out. So everyone who has an iPhone, or whatever, thinks they're a photographer, because they can, as I joke, whenever I take a picture, I take 5 or 10 of them, because I don't know what I'm doing, and I figure, one of them's got to come out pretty good. So, is there? What do you say to that? You say to people, don't try, or if you're going to try, do this, or?
When I think about taking many pictures, if you're taking a large group, if you're taking a group of 10 or 15 or more people, invariably somebody's going to be doing something awkward, either blinking or scratching their nose or something. So you'd want to take as many as you can, make it quick, because most people don't want to just stand there forever while you're taking pictures. And talking about phones, a lot of people dismiss phones. They go, well, it's just my phone, that's it's not like a fancy camera like yours. I go, but actually phones take pretty darn good pictures. They really do.
Yeah. Well, okay.
Yeah, I think it really comes down to the person who's using the phone taking the picture, right? Like,
And sometimes it'll take forever. I mean, they're standing there with their phone. Wait. Oh, hold on.
Right.
I go, oh, come on.
Yeah.
Just hit the button.
Yeah. I would have snapped 10 in between that. It's like, so, well.
I mean, you can have the best phone in the world, the best camera in the world, but if you can't take a picture well, you can't frame it correctly. You can't check you can't see that the lighting is bad or the shadows are bad or, something else is in the background. Those are all things that a photographer, your brain works a little bit differently because you're seeing all of that and you're absorbing all of that and you're making sure that as much as that the secondary pieces that can negatively impact the photograph aren't really there, and things you are focusing on, things that are important are there, right? So, and I think it's the difference between a professional and someone who's an amateur, or a professional and someone who has got a great. I mean, I have friends who have these great cameras. Some can take really nice pictures, and some. If you give me that same camera, I mean, Todd and I talked about this a little bit at the taste. Chances are me taking a good photograph with that camera is I have to take 20, right? So, because I'm not trained, my brain doesn't work in the same way. Yeah. And, so that a photographer's brain sees things. And I have a friend who's a fairly accomplished photographer, and I noticed when he looks at something, I'm like, how the hell did you see that?
Yeah.
Like, how did you see that?
Yeah.
We're looking at the same window.
Yeah, no, it's true.
Well, natural light, I think, is the best. And I'm always very, very well aware of the lighting on people. Sometimes somebody will set up a photo where the photo is backlit. And I'll say, I want to get the same photo, but I'm going to get the exact opposite side because the light is going to hit them far better.
True.
I think that's something that we can talk about all day, but light, the fact that lights are all different color hues other than natural light, you create all kinds of odd coloring on people's skin tones, etc., with the wrong, or their clothes look like they're multicolored, even though it's wall one, right? Because the way the lights are coming in. So that's a whole different discussion, which again, a professional photographer, as you are, recognizes, and the regular folk like myself are going to go, I know that's true, but I can't tell you why my lights are all different.
No.
Which ones are going to affect the color the worst, and which ones to shut off, which to turn
Todd
on.
you probably will forget this, but at one time I remember Todd grabbed me, and then my wife came along a little bit, and you put us up against a wall because the lighting was so perfect with what we had on. And I think that's the key. They see things, or you see things that nobody else sees. Yeah.
Oh, even a good digital camera. If you're taking a photo that's not a flash photo and there's a lot of incandescent light tends to make people look yellowish. And so that's the other advantage of having digital, is that you can cool that photo down through editing and take out that yellowish hint in people's skin.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, everyone. Believe it or not, we are already out of time.
Oh, really?
Already talking about photography. So we'll have to have you come back, Todd.
Okay.
Talk some more. But if anybody is out there driving around or having a glass of wine, and listening to this photography chat with Tom and Bob and Todd, boy. My takeaway: hire a professional. Have somebody. Find someone, as you said, Todd, that you like. And that you feel comfortable with. And proceed. And we'll go from there. So all I have to say is special thanks to our friends at NBT Bank, because without them hosting or sponsoring, they don't host. Without them sponsoring this website, Bob and I would not be hosting. How's that? So please. Support them, and next time you have a special event, give Todd a holler. And Todd, how do they reach you? Facebook,
Todd Fairchild Photography.
There you go. Until next time, everyone, be safe, be well. We'll see you on the scene. Thanks.
What I'm looking for in a bank is one that's looking out for me, like NBT. I want a relationship and a team that supports me in my dreams. And when life gets challenging, I need a bank that's focused on what matters. Not to mention one that's been top-rated by Forbes in trust, customer service, financial advice, and more. That's why when it comes to meeting my banking needs, it's always NBT. Learn more at nbtbank.com. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.